The Sun contains billions of stars in the Milky Way, notwithstanding numerous other heavenly bodies, including the Sun. It is a medium-sized star situated on the external finish of one of the Milky Way's spirals, where the Sun lies in what is known as the Orion's Arm, which is one of two fundamental arms that stretch out for a huge number of light-years from the focal point of the universe, and the width of the Milky Way is around 100,000 light-years. The Sun-powered gathering contains an enormous number of heavenly bodies, the most significant of which are the planets, the 8 vehicle around it in curved circles, and the satellites that tail them, just as smaller person planets, like Pluto, notwithstanding countless space rocks and shooting stars originating from the focal point of the nearby planetary group, frigid bodies past the circle of Neptune, and a huge number of comets that originate from the furthest parts of the Bargain's framework. The pivot of this gathering is the Sun, whose gravitational field controls all other equivalent bodies in the close planetary system. The Sun alone contains over 99% of the massive issue in this framework, and it is a wellspring of colossal amounts of vitality and electromagnetic radiation that give the Earth, and the remainder of the planets, light and warmth. Hydrogen and helium components, just as little extensive different components, they contain not very many amounts of carbon, neon, nitrogen, magnesium, iron and silicon, and the aggregate of these components in the arrangement of the Sun is under 2%. Conversely, 72% of it is made of hydrogen, and 26% of helium, and the Sun has a moderately powerless attractive field around it, as its quality just arrives at double the quality of the Earth's attractive field. However, it is vigorously gathered in explicit regions of the Sun's surface, called the Sun-oriented spots, so that its quality increments by up to multiple times. 3. The Sun doesn't have a strong surface, it is made for the most part out of gas, and in this manner nobody can stand or stroll on it, but then it has an air, which varies from its surface by being less thick and blistering than it. The Sun and its air are separated into a few layers. The first is the core, which is situated in the focal point of the Sun totally. The core of the Sun is about a fourth of its distance across, is extremely thick, and the atomic combination process that provisions the Sun with its huge vitality happens inside it. During atomic combination, each 2 iotas of hydrogen, each with 1 proton at its middle, meld into a helium molecule. It has 2 protons, and this procedure frees extremely enormous amounts of electromagnetic radiation. Right around 33% of the Sun is comprised of the radiation layer, a layer inside which photons are scattered so much that occasionally it takes a large number of years to escape the Sun. At last, the convection layer, which alone contains 66% of the size of the Sun, has almost no thickness, and the light goes through it outside the Sun. 3.27 The environment of the Sun is separated into 3 layers, which are the photosphere, the chromosphere, and the areola. The temperature in the lower layers of the photosphere arrives at in excess of 6,000 degrees Celsius, while the chromosphere is more sizzling. It ascends to around 20,000%, and arrives at a tallness of around 10,000 kilometers. And afterward the quality falls. It is a transitional layer between the environment of the Sun and space, and the temperature in that ascends a ton to arrive at the greater part 1,000,000 degrees Celsius, and it approaches 10 million degrees when a fire ejects it from the Sun's surface, and after that it spreads in the Sun-oriented breeze. 3. The size of the Earth and the Sun follow the Earth in its characterization among the wonderful collections of planets as per the meaning of the International Astronomy Union (IAU), as it has a way where it spins around the Sun, and it has a gravitational power sufficiently able to keep up its circular shape, and it has a mass enormous enough to have the option to pull all the little bodies from their space, for example, shooting stars, shakes and residue squares. 4. The planet Earth is the biggest internal planets in size, and the third is a long way from the Sun. It is bigger than Mercury, Mars and Venus, and it has a solid environment and attractive field, and is viewed as a topographically dynamic planet. Its flat distance across, at the equator, is 12,756 kilometers, and it is marginally bigger than its vertical breadth, at the posts, because of the space brought about by the turn of the Earth around its pivot. Its polar width is 12,712 kilometers. 5. As for the Sun, it takes a practically flawless circular shape, as it is not really specked at the equator, in contrast to the Earth, scarcely 1.4 million kilometers in diameter, roughly 100 or multiple times the distance across of the Earth, and its outline surpasses 4.3 million kilometers, contrasted with Earth with a periphery of roughly 40,000 kilometers. 6. It contains inside it 1,300,000 Earth circles. However, all in all, it surpasses the mass of the Earth by 33% of a million times, and the Sun alone contains 99.8% of the massive issue present all through the nearby planetary group, and it can contain all the 8 planets joined, and along these lines everything in the close planetary system isn't more than a little leftover encompassing it. In spite of this, the Sun is just a star of medium size and mass, and there are numerous stars in the cosmic system that are enormous in size. For instance, a star of the core of a scorpion can contain inside it 700 suns, and the measure of radiation and vitality discharged by the Sun surpasses 14,000 times.